How's it going, amazing people? I'm Landon, and I'm back from my honeymoon in Italy. Italy was incredible. Colosseum, pasta, history, the works. But not every moment was perfect. We had a weird experience getting kicked out of a restaurant. But that's a story for my vlog channel. Now let's get back to what you're here for. Wild, mind-blowing stories. Today's list will make you question time, justice, and human endurance. Let's dive in. These are the top 7 people who outlived insane prison sentences. Buckle up. Go. Number 7 on our list is Eddie Collins, a young man caught in the system. Back in 1963, at just 27 years old, Eddie found himself entangled in a robbery. But this was no ordinary heist. It was a robbery that tragically went wrong, spiraling out of control. The situation escalated, and in the chaos, a man lost his life. A life taken, and a life ruined. For his involvement, Eddie received a life sentence, condemning him to spend his days within the imposing walls of Pennsylvania's Graterford prison. 57 long years behind bars. Imagine the weight of that. More than half a century removed from the world. He was forced to watch the world undergo massive changes, witnessing history unfold from behind those cold, unforgiving concrete walls. During his time, Eddie reportedly showed deep and genuine remorse for his actions, a sign of regret that resonated with many. He transformed himself into a model inmate, striving to make amends, and dedicated himself to mentoring others within the prison system. But as the years passed, Eddie's health began to fail, his body succumbing to the ravages of time and confinement. Recognizing his declining condition, advocates stepped forward, tirelessly arguing for his compassionate release, hoping to grant him a chance at freedom before it was too late. Finally, in 2020, at the age of 84, Eddie was granted compassionate release, a decision that offered a glimmer of hope in his twilight years. He stepped back into a world that had drastically changed, a world he barely recognized after decades of isolation. Sadly, his newfound freedom was short-lived as he passed away just a few months later. 57 years of his life lost, all stemming from one tragic mistake, a single moment that irrevocably altered his destiny. Eddie's story serves as a somber and poignant reminder of the far-reaching consequences of our actions. It highlights how a single decision, made in a moment of desperation or misjudgment, can ultimately define an entire lifetime. And sometimes, even when justice prevails, freedom arrives too late to truly savor its sweetness. Our 6th case is that of Harvey Stewart, a young man full of potential whose life took a drastic turn. Harvey's journey into the prison system began in 1952, a consequence of a murder conviction. The gavel fell, sealing his fate for decades to come. He spent 60 long years behind bars, a significant portion of which was endured in near solitary confinement. Imagine the mental fortitude required to survive such isolation. When Harvey entered prison, the world was a very different place. He left behind a world of black and white TVs, a symbol of a simpler time. And the primary mode of communication was the rotary phone, a far cry from the instant connectivity we know today. He re-entered a world dominated by smartphones, pocket-sized computers capable of accessing all the world's information, and a society deeply intertwined with social media, a concept that would have been unimaginable in the 1950s. At the age of 81, he was released back into a world he simply didn't recognize. The pace of change had been relentless. He'd never seen an ATM, a ubiquitous machine that dispenses cash at the touch of a button, or a microwave, a device that could cook a meal in minutes using technology he couldn't comprehend. Everyday things were alien to him. Simple tasks became monumental challenges. He had to relearn basic life skills, from using public transportation to managing his finances with the patient help from social workers. Harvey's story is a stark reminder that prison can steal more than just freedom. It can erase your place in history, leaving you adrift in a world that has moved on without you. He lost his youth, the prime of his life, within those cold prison walls. His middle age, the opportunity to build a career and a family, was also taken from him. And perhaps most tragically, his connection to the world, the bonds of friendship and family, were severed. 60 years later, he was essentially a time traveler, a man out of sync with the present, lost in what felt like the distant future. The punishment, it seemed, didn't end at the prison gates. It followed him into his new life. For Harvey, freedom wasn't the joyous liberation he might have imagined. It was just another challenge, a new set of obstacles to overcome. Sometimes the world moves on without you, leaving you behind to grapple with a reality you no longer understand. At number 5, meet Hugh Alderman, the real-life bank robber legend. In the 1940s and 50s, Hugh stole what would be millions today, escaped jail twice, and lived like an outlaw. But in 1956, his luck ran out. He got 120 years at Folsom Prison. The daring criminal aged into a frail, forgotten man, eventually transferred to a mental hospital. He died in 1997 after over 40 years locked up, outliving his fame, fortune, and even his own mind. Hugh's story is a dramatic fall from the fast lane to anonymity. Crime may thrill, but the end is often lonely and forgotten. Even legends fade behind bars. Number 4 is Charles Edrick, a heartbreaking case of injustice. In 1944 Florida, Charles, a black teenager, was falsely accused and convicted by an all-white jury. No evidence, a coerced confession, and a sham trial. He got life for a crime he didn't commit. 64 years in prison, always maintaining his innocence, watching the world change from behind bars. Decades of appeals were ignored, but Charles never gave up hope. In 2008, new evidence proved his innocence. At 78, he was finally freed. He got compensation, but nothing could return the life stolen from him. Charles's story is a devastating indictment of a broken justice system. He outlived a lie but lost everything else. Sometimes justice comes far too late. Number 3, Howard Christensen. In 1949, at just 14, Howard was tried as an adult for a robbery gone wrong and sentenced to life without parole. He spent 64 years in prison, growing up and growing old behind bars. As laws changed, courts recognized kids deserve a second chance. In 2013, Howard was resentenced and released at 78. He missed every milestone of a normal life, stepping into freedom as an old man. Howard's story is a powerful case for juvenile justice reform. Sometimes the system takes a lifetime to admit it was wrong. Number 2, Johnson Van Dyke Grigsby. Convicted in 1908, Grigsby spent over 50 years in Indiana State Prison. Parole was always denied, but when he was finally released in 1960, the world overwhelmed him. He voluntarily returned to prison, the only home he knew. Grigsby became a legend, the man who chose prison over freedom. He lived out his days inside, until at 91, the prison could no longer care for him. After 66 years, he was released for good. Grigsby outlived the system's stubbornness, and his own. Sometimes, freedom is scarier than prison. He was a man out of time, both inside and out. See, number 1, Paul Geidel Jr., a name that echoes through the corridors of correctional history. He holds the somber distinction of being the longest-serving inmate in U.S. history, a testament to a life consumed by the justice system. The story begins in 1911. A young, impressionable Paul Geidel Jr., just 17 years old, committed a crime that would forever alter the course of his life. He killed a hotel guest. The consequences were severe. He was handed a sentence of 20 years to life, a seemingly endless stretch behind bars. He ultimately spent an astounding 68 years and 245 days within the confines of prison walls, a period that spanned nearly 3/4 of a century. Imagine watching the world transform from the sidelines, witnessing monumental shifts in society, technology, and culture, all while trapped within the same 4 walls. By the time he was finally eligible for parole, something unexpected happened. He didn't want it. The prospect of freedom held no allure. For Paul Geidel Jr., prison had become more than just a place of confinement. It was all he knew, the only reality he could comprehend. The outside world, with its unfamiliar customs and rapid changes, terrified him. It was a landscape he no longer recognized. He was utterly alone, with no family to return to, no friends to offer support, and absolutely no idea how to navigate the complexities of a life lived in freedom. Understanding his plight, authorities spent years gently and patiently convincing him to embrace the possibility of release. Finally, in 1980, at the age of 86, he was released and placed in a nursing home, a world away from the prison he had called home for so long. But even in this new environment, he never truly adjusted to the concept of freedom, forever marked by his past. Paul Geidel ultimately outlived not only his original sentence but also the very idea of what life outside those imposing walls could even be. Sometimes, tragically, the walls of confinement become the only world a person knows, shaping their identity and dictating their existence. He died in 1987, a man whose life, for all intents and purposes, was lost to the relentless passage of time. Paul Geidel Jr. remains the record holder for a sentence no one should ever have to endure, a stark reminder of the human cost of incarceration. And that's the top 7 people who outlived insane prison sentences. These stories are staggering. Decades lost, worlds changed, and lives forever altered. Some are tragic, some unjust, but all show the resilience and tragedy of the human spirit. Which story shocked you most? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. See you in the next one.